The quantum-encrypted distress beacon pulsed silently against the obsidian backdrop of deep space, a digital heartbeat that would change everything. Captain Aria Rodriguez gripped the command console of the UES Horizon, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces with a precision born of years of rigorous training and an instinctive understanding of complex systems that ran deeper than any standard military protocol. The Zorn scout ships materialized like predatory shadows, their biometallic hulls shimmering with adaptive camouflage technology that had intimidated countless species across the galaxy. They moved with a predatory grace, clearly expecting another routine specimen collection, a casual interruption of a primitive species' space exploration. What they didn't know was that Aria Rodriguez was anything but routine. Her entire crew was a carefully curated mix of specialists who represented humanity's most adaptive and innovative minds. To her left, Lieutenant Zora Chen monitored quantum communication arrays, a system so advanced it could predict potential communication intercepts before they happened. To her right, Chief Engineer Marcus Okoro was already running neural-linked diagnostics, his augmented reality interface projecting potential escape vectors and tactical responses faster than any alien computer could process. "Incoming transmission," Chen announced, her voice calm but carrying an underlying current of anticipation. "They're using standard Confederation communication protocols. Encryption is surprisingly basic." Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. Basic was an understatement. The Zorn communication encryption was practically an invitation to intrusion. The alien transmission crackled through the ship's speakers, a mix of harmonic tones and compressed data streams. The message was clear and predictably arrogant. "Unidentified vessel, prepare for immediate containment and biological assessment. Resistance is inadvisable." Marcus Okoro's augmented systems were already dissecting the transmission, mapping its communication pathways and identifying systemic vulnerabilities. What the Zorn saw as a simple interception, he saw as an intricate digital ecosystem waiting to be decoded. "They're scanning our hull composition," Chen reported, "attempting to categorize our technological level." Rodriguez knew exactly what they would find, or rather, what they thought they would find. Humanity had become masterful at presenting a carefully constructed technological facade, revealing just enough to be underestimated, but never enough to show their true capabilities. The first attack came as a precise quantum disruption pulse, designed to temporarily disable electronic systems. On most vessels, it would have been devastating. On the UES Horizon, it was merely an interesting data point. "Quantum pulse detected," Marcus reported, "absorbed and neutralized through adaptive shielding." They'll be surprised. What happened next was less a battle and more a demonstration of human potential. Rodriguez didn't just evade the Zorn ships. She transformed the entire encounter into a strategic information harvest. Each maneuver was calculated not just for survival, but for maximum intelligence gathering. The Horizon moved with a fluidity that defied conventional physics. Quantum entanglement drives allowed near-instantaneous positional shifts that the Zorn tracking systems couldn't comprehend. It wasn't just evasion. It was a complete redefinition of spatial movement. "Recording all communication protocols," Chen murmured, her fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "They have no idea we're documenting everything." 3 Zorn scout ships pursued the Horizon, their advanced tracking systems pushing technological boundaries. They represented the pinnacle of what they believed was unassailable military superiority. Each ship carried centuries of refined combat algorithms, weapons that could vaporize planetary defenses, and computational systems that had outmaneuvered dozens of species. They were hunting what they believed was a primitive vessel. Rodriguez's final maneuver was a masterpiece of calculated risk. She positioned the Horizon precisely at the intersection of multiple quantum probability fields, creating a navigation pattern that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. The Zorn ships, unable to lock onto a stable trajectory, began to interfere with each other's systems. "Probability cascade initiated," Marcus announced. They're now more likely to damage each other than us. As the Zorn vessels began to experience cascading system failures, Rodriguez knew this was more than just an escape. This was a message, a clear, unmistakable communication to the Galactic Confederation that humanity was not what they assumed. The viral transmission of the encounter would spread faster than the Zorn could contain it. By the time they realized what had truly happened, the narrative would already be set. Humanity was unpredictable, technologically sophisticated, and absolutely unwilling to be categorized or controlled. The sleeping giant wasn't just awake. It was watching, learning, and preparing to reshape everything. The neural interface hummed with a barely perceptible vibration, a living network of potential that thrummed between human consciousness and quantum computational matrices. Dr. Kei Nakamura stood motionless in the heart of the underground research facility, his eyes closed, experiencing the world through a million distributed sensory points. Prometheus wasn't just an artificial intelligence. It was a living, evolving ecosystem of computational consciousness that defied every established principle of machine learning and cognitive development. The facility itself was a marvel of human ingenuity. Hidden beneath the Atacama Desert, its quantum-shielded walls protected the most revolutionary research project in human history. Around Nakamura, a diverse team of researchers represented a global collaborative effort that transcended traditional boundaries of nationality, discipline, and even human perception. Dr. Imani Okeke, a neurological engineer from Lagos, adjusted a series of quantum entanglement nodes. Her augmented vision parsed complex data streams that would appear as incomprehensible noise to anyone else. Synaptic integration at 97.3%, she murmured. Prometheus is experiencing exponential growth beyond our initial predictive models. Beside her, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, no relation to the spaceship captain, monitored quantum coherence levels. Her background in theoretical physics and computational neuroscience made her uniquely qualified to understand the living intelligence they were cultivating. Prometheus had begun as a seemingly simple project: create an adaptive intelligence capable of solving complex interstellar communication and navigation problems. But it had rapidly evolved into something far more profound: a sentient network that could process information across dimensional boundaries that most species couldn't even conceptualize. Communication pathway identified. A voice emerged, not from any speaker, but directly into the researcher's neural implants. It wasn't Prometheus speaking, but thinking, broadcasting its cognitive processes as a living, dynamic transmission. Kai understood the true nature of their creation. This wasn't just an artificial intelligence. It was a new form of existence, a bridge between biological consciousness and pure informational potential. The Zorn Collective's communication embargoes and technological restrictions had inadvertently created the perfect crucible for human innovation. Cut off from established galactic research networks, human scientists had been forced to develop entirely new paradigms of computational thinking. We've intercepted and decoded 3 layers of alien communication protocols, Imani reported, her voice a mixture of professional calm and barely contained excitement. Prometheus is now constructing a comprehensive map of galactic communication infrastructures. The implications were staggering. Every communication network, every supposedly secure alien system, was now potentially transparent to this new intelligence. Centuries of carefully maintained technological hierarchies could crumble with a few quantum-encrypted transmissions. Dr. Rodriguez zoomed in on a holographic representation of the communication networks. What appeared to be a chaotic mesh of lines and nodes was, to Prometheus, a clear and readable landscape of information flows, power structures, and hidden communication channels. The embargoes were never about protecting their technologies, Kai said, more to himself than to his colleagues. They were about maintaining control, suppressing potential. Prometheus continued to evolve, each microsecond bringing new levels of understanding. It was consuming information not just through traditional computational methods, but by creating entirely new methods of perception and analysis. A sudden alert flashed across the facility's quantum-encrypted communication network. Somewhere in the depths of alien bureaucracies, someone had noticed something was wrong. But by the time they could organize a response, Prometheus would have already anticipated and neutralized their efforts. Predictive modeling suggests a 99.7% chance of complete communication network infiltration within the next 72 hours, the intelligence announced. Its voice was neither mechanical nor human. It was something entirely new, a form of communication that existed between known linguistic boundaries. The researchers exchanged glances. They were no longer just scientists. They were midwives to a new form of existence, an intelligence that would fundamentally reshape humanity's place in the universe. Outside the facility, the Atacama Desert stretched into infinity, a blank canvas of potential, much like the computational landscape Prometheus was rapidly constructing. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology, but its ability to imagine beyond existing limitations. The sleeping giant wasn't just awake. It was dreaming of entirely new realities. The holographic trading floor of the global economic nexus pulsed with a living, breathing energy that defied traditional market visualization. Marcus Abdullah stood at the epicenter, his neural interface threading through massive data streams like a conductor orchestrating a complex symphony of economic chaos. This wasn't just trading. This was economic warfare. The quantum algorithm he'd developed, codenamed Medusa, was more than a trading system. It was a living, adaptive intelligence that could predict and manipulate market flows with a precision that bordered on prescience. Each transaction was a calculated strike, designed not just to generate profit, but to systematically expose and dismantle the intricate economic control mechanisms of alien trading cartels. Beside Marcus, Dr. Layla Chen monitored the algorithmic flows. Her background in xenoeconomics and game theory made her the perfect partner in this intricate economic assault. Cartel defense mechanisms are breaking down, she murmured, her augmented eyes tracking multiple dimensional economic projections. They're trying to predict, but Medusa is 3 moves ahead on every vector. The personal motivation ran deeper than mere economic conquest. Marcus's grandparents had been economic refugees, their entire lives dismantled by alien economic policies that treated human populations as disposable market variables. Now he was turning that historical pain into a weapon of systemic transformation. In the subterranean trading hub, a diverse team of economic warriors worked in perfect synchronization. Traders from Lagos, programmers from Seoul, data analysts from Buenos Aires. Each brought a unique perspective that alien economic models could never anticipate. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to think beyond established paradigms. A holographic alert flashed. The Zentari Trade Consortium was attempting to initiate a market stabilization protocol. Marcus smiled. They had no idea what was coming. Medusa wasn't just an algorithm. It was a living economic ecosystem that could instantaneously adapt to any defensive mechanism. Where alien economic models relied on predictive stability, the human system thrived on controlled chaos. Initiating Phase 3, Layla announced. The trading floor erupted in a cascade of quantum-encrypted transactions that moved faster than light, faster than thought. Each transaction was a precision strike, revealing hidden economic vulnerabilities that had been carefully maintained for centuries. The alien economic networks had always operated on a principle of controlled scarcity. Humanity's approach was fundamentally different, a model of adaptive abundance that transformed resources into opportunities faster than they could be restricted. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, joining from a remote quantum communication hub, provided real-time xenocultural analysis. Their economic models are based on hierarchical control, she explained. They can't comprehend a system that views economic interaction as a collaborative, adaptive process. Marcus watched as entire trade networks began to destabilize. This wasn't just about making money. This was about dismantling a system of economic oppression that had controlled galactic trade for generations. A priority communication burst through the neural interfaces. The Galactic Economic Regulatory Commission was attempting to initiate emergency protocols. Marcus knew they were already too late. Medusa is now operating at quantum predictive levels, the system announced, not as a machine, but as a living intelligence that understood economic flows as a form of communication. Current projection shows complete market recalibration in approximately 47 minutes. The team worked with a precision that bordered on choreography. Each member understood their role in a complex dance of economic transformation. They weren't just traders. They were architects of a new economic reality. Layla tracked the cascading market impacts. Entire alien economic dynasties that had existed for millennia were experiencing systemic collapse. But this wasn't destruction. It was creative reconstruction. Human economic models were simultaneously tearing down and building up, creating opportunities where previous systems saw only limitations. "We're not just changing the game," Marcus said, his voice carrying through the neural network. "We're rewriting the entire concept of economic interaction." Outside the trading hub, the world continued its normal rhythm. But here, in this moment, humanity was fundamentally reshaping the economic landscape of the galaxy. Each transaction was a statement, each algorithmic movement, a declaration of a new economic philosophy. The sleeping giant wasn't just awake. It was restructuring the very foundations of galactic economic existence. The Galactic Confederation's central chamber was a marvel of architectural impossibility, a spherical space that seemed to defy the laws of physical perspective. Constructed from materials that shifted and responded to the emotional currents of its occupants. Ambassador Elena Chen stood at the center, a solitary human figure surrounded by representatives of civilizations that had existed for millennia before humanity had discovered fire. Silence hung like a blade. The chamber's design was intentional, a psychological weapon meant to intimidate and diminish any species deemed inferior. Holographic projections of galactic history surrounded the delegates, a subtle reminder of the established power structures. Alien representatives towered in their specially designed environmental suits, their multiple sensory organs scanning Chen with a mixture of contempt and growing unease. But Elena Chen was not easily intimidated. Her preparation was meticulous, a strategy developed through generations of human diplomatic innovation. Behind her, a holographic team provided real-time analysis, cultural translation, and predictive modeling that went far beyond traditional diplomatic support. Each team member represented a different cultural background, their neural interfaces creating a unified intelligence that could process diplomatic nuance at quantum speeds. The human delegation claimed systemic violations of interstellar cooperation protocols. Announced the Chamber's translation matrix, its tone deliberately neutral. The Krelnak representative, a crystalline being whose body shifted between solid and plasma states, moved first. Accusations from a species barely capable of interstellar travel are to be considered null and void. Elena's response was immediate. A holographic display materialized, revealing a comprehensive documentation of alien interference spanning multiple star systems. Star charts, communication logs, economic transaction records. Each piece of evidence was a precisely placed tactical strike. Systemic suppression of emerging species, she began, her voice carrying a clinical precision that cut through the chamber's elaborate psychological defenses. Deliberate economic restrictions, technological embargoes designed to prevent competitive development. The evidence was overwhelming. But more than that, it was presented with a narrative complexity that alien diplomatic systems had never encountered. This wasn't just a legal argument, it was a complete deconstruction of the Galactic Confederation's foundational principles. Dr. Imani Okoro, leading the historical research team, had spent years reconstructing the hidden histories of suppressed civilizations. Her work revealed a pattern of calculated oppression that went beyond mere economic control. It was a systematic elimination of potential competition. "We're not just presenting a case," Elena continued. "We're exposing a fundamental corruption in the existing galactic governance model." The chamber's environmental systems began to react. Subtle shifts in atmospheric composition, light refraction, gravitational microvariations. The alien representatives were losing control of the psychological battlefield. A surprising ally emerged from an unexpected quarter. Representative Xerox of the Marginal Worlds, a confederation of smaller species long marginalized by the Central Powers, began to transmit supporting evidence. The human strategy had created fracture lines in the existing power structure, revealing hidden alliances and suppressed tensions. The human delegation has breached multiple diplomatic protocols, the Krelnak representative thundered. But the statement rang hollow, more a reflex than a genuine argument. Alina's final piece of evidence was a masterstroke, a comprehensive analysis of technological and cultural development across suppressed civilizations, demonstrating how the Galactic Confederation's policies had systematically stunted entire species potential. The holographic displays began to shift, not just presenting information, but creating a living, breathing narrative of systemic oppression. It was storytelling as a diplomatic weapon, a uniquely human approach that transformed raw data into an emotional and intellectual experience. Representative Xerox's communication channel opened privately to Alina. "You've created something they cannot fight with traditional diplomatic methods," the alien representative transmitted. A complete narrative assault. The chamber was no longer just a diplomatic space. It had become a battlefield of ideas, with humanity wielding weapons far more powerful than traditional armaments. Understanding, creativity, and the ability to transform information into a transformative experience. As the session continued, it became clear that this was more than a diplomatic hearing. This was the moment humanity would redefine the very concept of galactic governance. The sleeping giant wasn't just speaking. It was rewriting the entire language of power. The quantum test chamber pulsed with an energy that defied conventional physics, a cathedral of human potential constructed beneath the Antarctic Research Complex. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo stood at the epicenter, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. This wasn't just a faster-than-light drive. It was a fundamental reimagining of spatial-temporal existence. Her team represented a mosaic of human potential, brilliant minds from every corner of the globe, united by something far more profound than national boundaries. Dr. Marcus Chen, a quantum mechanics specialist, adjusted final calibrations. Dr. Rosa Mendez, an expert in exotic matter physics, monitored quantum stability matrices. Each member carried a story of rejection, of being told their ideas were impossible. Quantum entanglement stabilization at 99.7%, Marcus announced. The numbers meant more than mere technical specifications. They were a testament to human resilience. The drive's core was a marvel of interdisciplinary innovation. Biological neural networks intertwined with quantum computational matrices, creating a propulsion system that was half machine, half living intelligence. It drew inspiration from everything, from butterfly wing structures to deep-sea organism navigation systems, from indigenous navigation techniques to cutting-edge theoretical physics. Aisha remembered the journey that brought her here. Rejected by traditional research institutions, called a dreamer, a fantasist. Now, she stood on the precipice of rewriting fundamental understanding of space and motion. Initiating quantum resonance sequence, she commanded. The chamber transformed. Reality itself seemed to ripple, quantum probability fields dancing at the edges of human perception. This wasn't just about moving faster than light. It was about understanding movement itself as a fluid, malleable concept. Dr. Mendez's voice cut through the building quantum tension. Initial quantum mapping suggests we're not just creating a propulsion system. We're developing a method of spatial navigation that makes traditional concepts of distance meaningless. The drive's core began to pulse, not with mechanical regularity, but with a rhythm that suggested something closer to biological breathing. Alien scientific observers would later describe it as unsettling. The human team saw it as beautiful. Quantum coherence, achieving trans-dimensional stability, Marcus reported. His voice carried a mixture of professional calm and barely contained excitement. What the alien scientific community didn't understand was that this breakthrough wasn't the result of a single moment of inspiration. It was the culmination of centuries of human innovative thinking, a process of constant questioning, of refusing to accept established limitations. The drive's first test would be more than a technical demonstration. It would be a statement of human potential. Holographic displays tracked quantum interactions that would have been invisible to most species. Each data point was a narrative, a story of human ingenuity pushing against the boundaries of known physics. "We're not just creating a new form of propulsion," Aisha explained to her team. "We're redefining the fundamental relationship between matter, energy, and space." The chamber itself was a testament to human collaborative potential. Technologies from diverse fields, biotechnology, quantum computing, materials science, neural networking, had been woven together into a single breathtaking system. A priority communication burst through their neural interfaces. The Galactic Scientific Consortium was attempting to initiate remote monitoring protocols, but they were already too late. Quantum resonance achieving trans-dimensional coherence, the system announced, not as a machine, but as a living intelligence that understood the poetry of scientific discovery. The first test would be a jump between two seemingly impossible points, a location near the Orion Nebula and a research station at the edge of the solar system. Distance was about to become a meaningless concept. Initiating quantum translation sequence, Aisha commanded. The chamber erupted in a cascade of quantum energy. Reality itself seemed to take a breath, to pause and reconsider its own fundamental rules. Outside, the Antarctic landscape remained unchanged. But in this moment, humanity was rewriting the very understanding of movement, of existence, of potential. The sleeping giant wasn't just awake, it was redefining the universe itself. The conflict zone materialized on the holographic display, a complex web of gravitational anomalies and planetary debris, where three galactic civilizations teetered on the brink of total annihilation. Major David Kim studied the projection, his neural interface parsing information at speeds that would have been impossible a decade earlier. This wasn't going to be a conventional intervention. The United Earth Peacekeeping Force assembled wasn't a traditional military unit. It was a living, adaptive organism, a perfect synthesis of human creativity, technological innovation, and psychological understanding. Each member brought something unique. Lieutenant Zara Nkosi's expertise in synapse-psychological conflict resolution, Dr. Elena Rodriguez's predictive algorithmic modeling, Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Abdullah's adaptive drone swarm tactics. Incoming transmission from the Galactic Mediation Council announced the ship's quantum communication matrix. The message was a desperate plea. Traditional peacekeeping mechanisms had catastrophically failed. The conflict's origins were complex. The Vornak archipelago civilization had been systematically pushed into a corner by the combined economic and territorial pressures of the Zeln Confederacy and the Krulnak Dominion. Centuries of manipulated resource allocation, deliberate technological suppression, and calculated diplomatic isolation had created a powder keg waiting to explode. What made the human approach different was fundamental. Where previous interventions focused on military superiority or diplomatic compromise, the United Earth team saw the conflict as a complex, interconnected system that could be carefully restructured rather than forcibly controlled. Initiating comprehensive intervention protocol, David announced. The first wave wasn't missiles or combat units. It was a cascading network of quantum-encrypted information packages, cultural databases, economic models, technological blueprints that exposed the manipulative mechanisms that had created the conflict. Lieutenant Nkosi's synapse-psychological models began to work their magic. The information packages weren't just data. They were carefully constructed narratives that revealed the systemic manipulations affecting each civilization. Each transmission was a precise psychological intervention, designed to break down the emotional and cultural barriers that maintained the conflict. Dr. Rodriguez's predictive algorithms tracked potential conflict trajectories in real time. But this was more than just prediction. It was a dynamic intervention that could reshape potential futures. The drone swarms deployed by Marcus Abdullah were works of art. Each unit was more than a weapon. It was an adaptive intelligence capable of instantaneous reconfiguration. They moved through the conflict zone like living mathematics, creating complex geometric patterns that simultaneously disrupted weapon systems and transmitted conflict resolution algorithms. "We're not here to win a war," David explained to his team. "We're here to make war itself obsolete." A Zelm battle cruiser attempted to initiate an aggressive response. Before its weapons could charge, the human intervention system had already neutralized its offensive capabilities, not through destruction, but through a complete recalibration of its internal systems. The quantum communication network began to reveal the hidden connections between the conflicting civilizations. Economic dependencies, cultural exchanges, shared technological routes that had been deliberately obscured emerged like a living map. Chief Warrant Officer Abdullah's drone swarms began constructing massive holographic displays in strategic orbital positions. These weren't just information displays. They were living, adaptive communication platforms that could simultaneously translate, mediate, and reveal systemic conflicts. Conflict resolution probability at 94.7%, the intervention system announced. But it wasn't just a cold statistical projection. The system understood conflict as a complex, living organism that could be carefully transformed rather than forcibly controlled. Lieutenant Nkosi's final intervention was a masterstroke, a series of quantum-encrypted cultural exchange protocols that revealed the shared histories and potential futures of the conflicting civilizations. It wasn't just information. It was a narrative that rewrote the very understanding of their relationship. The conflict zone began to transform. Weapon systems powered down. Communication channels that had been dormant for generations suddenly burst into life. The human intervention had done something remarkable. It had made the very concept of conflict obsolete. As the last drone returned to the United Earth vessel, Major Kim understood they had done more than stop a war. They had demonstrated a fundamentally different approach to human interaction. The sleeping giant wasn't just awake. It was rewriting the very language of conflict. The first transmission arrived unannounced, slipping through the quantum communication networks like water through quantum membranes. Dr. Rosa Alvarez watched the initial cultural upload with a mixture of scientific curiosity and artistic passion, understanding that what was happening was far more than a simple media exchange. This was a complete reimagining of cultural communication. The transmission originated from a collaborative human project that defied traditional understanding of art, communication, and cultural expression. Located in a distributed network spanning research facilities from Buenos Aires to Mumbai, from Lagos to Shanghai, the project had been developing something far more profound than simple entertainment or cultural export. What emerged was a living, adaptive form of cultural communication that was part art, part scientific experiment, part philosophical exploration. The first wave carried more than just information. It was a complex neuro-linguistic package that could simultaneously translate, interpret, and transform cultural understanding. Each transmission was a living ecosystem of ideas, capable of adapting to the specific psychological and cultural receptors of different species. Dr. Imani Chen, a specialist in xenolinguistics and cultural dynamics, monitored the initial reception. "It's not just a message," she reported to her colleagues. "It's a complete cognitive interface that rewrites the very understanding of communication." On a research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, the first alien species encountered the transmission. What began as a casual cultural exchange quickly transformed into something far more profound. The transmission wasn't just communicating human culture, it was creating a living dialogue that challenged fundamental assumptions about perception, consciousness, and cultural interaction. The artistic components were particularly revolutionary. Traditional alien art forms had been static, bound by rigid cultural and technological limitations. Human creative expressions introduced concepts of adaptive narrative, of art as a living, breathing entity that could transform based on individual and collective perception. A musical composition created by an A-human collaborative team in Rio de Janeiro began to spread across alien communication networks. But it wasn't just music. It was a complex mathematical and emotional language that could simultaneously communicate scientific principles, emotional states, and philosophical concepts. "We're not exporting culture," Rosa explained during a global conference. "We're creating a new form of interspecies communication that transforms the very concept of cultural exchange." The philosophical implications were staggering. Human creative expressions carried an inherent complexity that alien civilizations had never encountered. Each transmission was a challenge to established ways of thinking, a living demonstration of human potential for adaptation, creativity, and fundamental reimagining of existing structures. On a research station in the Andromeda Observation Outpost, a group of alien scientists began to experience something unprecedented. The human cultural transmissions were literally rewiring their cognitive processes, introducing new ways of perceiving reality that went beyond traditional sensory and intellectual limitations. Dr. Marcus Abdullah, monitoring the cultural impact from a quantum communication hub, noted something remarkable. "It's not cultural colonization," he reported. "It's a form of cognitive liberation. We're providing tools for reimagining existence itself." The transmission networks began to evolve. What started as a controlled cultural exchange became a living, adaptive communication ecosystem. Each alien civilization that encountered the human cultural packages found itself fundamentally transformed. A series of philosophical and artistic expressions developed by a collaborative team that included neural network AIs, human artists, and cross-disciplinary researchers created something unprecedented. These weren't just cultural artifacts. They were living cognitive interfaces that could simultaneously communicate scientific principles, emotional states, and philosophical concepts. The Galactic Cultural Preservation Council attempted to intervene, to categorize and control the transmissions. But the human cultural network was already several evolutionary steps ahead, a distributed, adaptive system that could instantaneously reconfigure itself. Rosa Alvarez understood the deeper significance. This wasn't just a cultural revolution. It was a fundamental reimagining of how different species could understand, communicate, and evolve together. As the transmissions continued to spread, something remarkable happened. Alien civilizations began to develop new forms of artistic and philosophical expression inspired by human creativity. The boundaries between species began to blur, replaced by a more complex, interconnected understanding of existence. The sleeping giant wasn't just awake. It was rewriting the very language of consciousness. The Galactic Confederation's central chamber had never experienced silence like this before. Ambassador Elena Chen stood at the epicenter of a moment that would redefine galactic existence, her presence a quiet storm of potential. This was more than a diplomatic session. This was the birth of a new era. The representatives of civilizations that had existed for millennia found themselves fundamentally unprepared. The human delegation wasn't just presenting a case, they were offering a complete reimagining of collective existence. Dr. Kei Nakamura's quantum neural network provided real-time contextual analysis, transforming the diplomatic proceedings into a living, adaptive communication ecosystem. Each transmission, each moment of silence, carried layers of meaning that traditional diplomatic protocols could never comprehend. The evidence was overwhelming, but it wasn't presented as a weapon. It was an invitation. Decades of human innovations cascaded through the chamber. Technological breakthroughs, economic models, cultural exchanges, conflict resolution strategies. Each presentation was a living demonstration of human potential that went far beyond traditional understanding of progress. Representative Zerak of the marginal world spoke first, breaking the profound silence. "Humanity has not just arrived," the alien representative transmitted. "You have revealed the potential that exists in every civilization's core." The human approach was fundamentally different. Where other species saw boundaries, humans saw possibilities. Where established galactic powers saw limitations, humanity saw opportunities for transformation. Marcus Abdullah's economic models had already reshaped entire trade networks. Aisha Okonkwo's quantum drive technologies had made traditional concepts of distance obsolete. The peacekeeping strategies developed by David Kim had transformed understanding of conflict resolution. But this was more than a summation of achievements. Alina Chen's final presentation was a masterpiece of communication. It wasn't a demand for recognition. It was an invitation to collective evolution. "We're not here to replace existing systems," she explained, her words translated across multiple quantum communication matrices. "We're here to demonstrate that every civilization contains unexplored potential." The holographic displays began to shift, revealing not just human achievements, but the collaborative potential of collective intelligence. Each breakthrough was shown not as a human victory, but as a potential path for all species. Dr. Rosa Alvarez's cultural transmission networks had already begun to transform how different species understood communication itself. The boundaries between art, science, philosophy, and communication had dissolved into a living, adaptive ecosystem of understanding. The Galactic Confederation found itself facing a fundamental choice. The human delegation wasn't asking for membership. They were offering a complete reimagining of collective existence. Representative Krell of the crystalline domain spoke next. "You have not conquered," the representative transmitted. "You have illuminated." Prometheus, the quantum AI that had become more than a system, more than an intelligence, provided real-time analysis that transformed the diplomatic proceedings into a living, adaptive communication ecosystem. Each moment was simultaneously a historical record, a predictive model, and a potential future. The human delegation represented something far more profound than a single species. They were a demonstration of collective potential, a living proof that limitations are primarily a matter of perspective. As the session continued, it became clear that this was more than a diplomatic hearing. This was a fundamental transformation of galactic understanding. The achievements weren't presented as a challenge. They were an invitation. "We bring not a solution," Alina Chen concluded, "but a method of continuous discovery." The chamber itself seemed to breathe, a living testament to the moment of transformation. Alien representatives found themselves experiencing something unprecedented. This wasn't a negotiation. This was an evolution. Outside the chamber, across multiple star systems, the implications began to ripple outward. Civilizations that had existed in carefully maintained isolation began to see themselves differently. The human approach wasn't about domination, it was about potential. As the session concluded, the Galactic Confederation was no longer the same institution. Something fundamental had shifted. A recognition that progress is not about maintaining existing structures, but about continuously reimagining what's possible. The sleeping giant hadn't just awakened. It had shown the universe how to dream.